girl, boy, man, woman, cisgender, transgender, queer,
intersex,
gender non-queer,
man,
gender
non-binary,
transgender, unicorn. With so many gender identities and terms being used, gender can be confusing to anyone. So what is gender? There are three categories to this conversation: biological sex, gender identity, and sexual orientation. Most people confuse biological sex with gender. Biological sex refers to biological traits that are usually determined by chromosomes. Most people are born male or female, with some people being born intersex. Someone is intersex when they're born without the typical XX or XY chromosomes. For example, a person may be born appearing female, but may actually have a male anatomy on the inside. Or a person may be born with genitals that appear between male or female. So biological sex, which determines if someone was born male, female, or intersex, is determined right at birth. Gender identity, however, is different. Gender is a social construct. That's right, a social construct, used to characterize traits within a person. People have put these arbitrary ideas of gender onto virtually everything, from genitals, types of clothing, career paths, and even colors. In today's society, tuxedos, penises, the color blue, and a love of football are considered masculine gender markers, while breasts, the color pink, dresses, and a love of Barbies are considered female gender markers. Many see gender as real, determined at birth, or a binary split between masculine and feminine. Yet these gender markers are not determined by your biological sex. They are ideas that we tend to assign a person based on sex. However, put simply, gender is how you see yourself. Biological males are given the masculine gender of boy, and biological females are given the feminine gender of girl. This is known as assigned male at birth or assigned female at birth. Many people feel perfectly comfortable with their assigned gender based on biological sex. These people are considered cisgendered. If you are a cis male or a cis female, your gender identity matches your biological sex. But for some people, their assigned gender identity doesn't feel right. So when a person's biological sex does not line up with their gender identity, they're considered transgender. Many trans people feel uncomfortable with their genitals, feeling that it doesn't wholly represent their gender identity. On the flip side though, many transgender people do feel comfortable with their genitals, but are not comfortable with other aspects of their gender identity. So while genitals can be a part of a transgender person's gender identity, they don't have to be a major factor or even a factor at all. Outside of genitals, feeling transgender can just be a general uncomfortability with being treated as one gender when you feel like the other. A trans person who is assigned male at birth but identifies as a woman is considered a trans woman. A person who is assigned woman at birth but identifies as a man is considered a trans man. Remember, biological sex is different than gender identity, which is how you identify in your head and in your heart. The third component is sexual orientation. Sexual orientation is itself an entire spectrum of identities. Sexual orientation itself is also not determined by biological sex or gender identity. So sexual orientation is who you want to date, and gender identity is how you see yourself. For example, a trans woman who finds only men attractive is considered straight, even though she's trans. So to recap, biological sex is determined by your chromosomes, male, female, or intersex. Gender identity is how you identify on a spectrum between masculine and feminine. And sexual orientation is how your gender identity relates to the gender identity or identities that you find attractive. However, not all people identify as the binary identities of boy and girl, but somewhere in between the two. So gender isn't two locked boxes that we find ourselves in. Gender is actually a spectrum that we all can move along, or not identify with at all. But that's a topic for the next video. The bottom line, while sex is determined at birth, gender identity is self-generated. So respect everyone's self-identification.